Is it your job or is it you? And how do you know? And what do you do about it? So that's what we're talking about today. I'm here with Dr. Jane, who is the founder and executive coach at GILD Coaching. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Shawn. Man, this is such a great topic because a lot of people get to a point in their career, they loved their job or maybe they didn't, and they just get to a point where they can't stand it anymore. They're wondering if there's something wrong with themselves, if it's their jerk boss, if it's the job that just doesn't fit them, and they're thinking about quitting. Should they? How do they figure out? It's such a common problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking of so many even different and diverse examples in the professional world. But so often, and you know this, I'll talk to a client and they'll say, you know what, I used to love my job, but now it's too much. I'm overworked. I have too many projects. You know, there's no balance. There's all of these things.
We don't have enough personnel. That's a big one.
Yes. Yes. And they're like, the only solution I see is I'm going to leave. I'm going to go find the next job. And I have to tell you, one of the first questions I always ask, and I don't always get the same answer, but one of the first questions I always ask is, okay, well, how much of this is your employer and how much of it is you? And I usually kind of get the, what do you mean? And so I kind of go on and I say, okay, so are these extra projects and things, did you raise your hand for them? Or is this a requirement of your employer? Have you just not said no to this extra work? Have you posed the question, hey, you know, I can't do all of these things. Another one I ask is, so what happens when you don't complete all of your workout time or all of your work on time? Are there repercussions? You know, are there consequences? And I have to say, a lot of the time we get to actually no. You're right. It's me that has raised my hand. It's me that hasn't said no. And if I'm really thinking about it and being honest with myself, if I went to my organization and said, hey, I need to, you know, get to a more manageable workload, they probably would absolutely entertain it.
Absolutely. And this is 100% mindset. And I'm admittedly, I am a recovering yes addict. I really don't like saying no to people. I like saying yes. I love helping people. I get a big emotional paycheck out of it. So there is an ego part to that. You know, yes, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Ego isn't always all bad, but when you're overextending yourself to feed your yes man ego, that's unhealthy. So yeah, we actually, and I think that it's linked in the video description below, we have a guide called How to Say No Without Saying No. And I literally created that because it was what I used to break my yes addiction. And I think most people who say that they're overwhelmed at work, do you need more employees? Probably. I have never had a professional client who's come and said, man, we've got more staff than we know what to do with. There's not enough work to go. Everybody says, well, I could use an assistant. We could use more people. So if that's you, join 100% of the rest of working America that thinks that more manpower in the office would help alleviate stuff. What happens when you do hire people, more work comes too. So, you know, it ends up balancing itself out and you're always wanting another person to help spread it out. But honestly, you've got to start saying no. That's most of it. Another thing, Shawn, is if you've convinced yourself that you don't like your job or your boss or your coworkers or that it's not for you, and on your way to work, you say like, oh, I really wish that I say to yourself, I really wish that I didn't have to go here. Or a lot of people have reported like Sunday afternoon, if they work a Monday through Friday work week, a Sunday afternoon dip where they're like, tomorrow I have to go to work.
Yeah.
If you're perpetuating those negative thoughts about the thing you're going to be doing, if you're experiencing the not liking of your job and you're letting it seep into your weekend, or you're letting it seep into your mornings or your evenings or your commute or whatever, you are talking yourself into being a higher degree of miserable because you're dwelling on the negative. it really is, in this case, a lot of mind over matter. And I've worked in an office where I didn't necessarily love the people, where I didn't necessarily love the work, where I didn't necessarily, want to skip and whistle on my way into the office. But you have to find the things. I am happy and grateful that I have a job that uses my strengths. If you do, I'm happy and grateful that I'm able to complete this job. Even if there's too much work for me, find those things. I'm happy and grateful that this job provides for my family. I'm happy and grateful that when I go home, I can take a hot shower and I can have the lights on and I can turn on the stove and cook something because I can afford the food and I can afford the power and I can, because this job helps provide for my life. And so if you find those things to shift your mindset to focus on the positive, I'm not saying it's going to make you fall in love with your boss or your job or your tasks, but it certainly is going to make them less miserable.
Yeah. I love what you said, because you're talking about, because we're talking about how do you know if it's you or your job, right? And if the answer to a lot of those questions are, I do like the people, I do like the work I do like those things, and it's the workload, then what are you doing to, what you just said was you've changed your mindset. Now what, how can you explore the workload piece? And you're right. I mean, there's a lot going on, today and in the past, what have you, in terms of not having enough staff and things like that. And that I hear people say the expectation is to do more work. No, I don't think that's the case. I think the request is to do more work, but then, and here's where my question comes in. I ask, okay, well, what happens when you don't complete all of your work on time? Or are you completing all your work on time right now? And 9 times out of 10, so no, I'm not. It's impossible. And nothing happens. Okay, well, then why are you stressed about it?
Yeah. And a lot of time it's just self-imposed guidelines or limits or goals based on, and this is a huge red flag word, our assumption that it's due, or our assumption that somebody needs it. Another thing that can really help here, and I mean,
and before you get to the help, I really would love to add what you just said to what you just said. It's based on our assumption of what our employer or what have you is thinking, because we're also, I think, interpreting the "I want you to do this" as a demand, and think of it as a question. Can you do this additional work? Are you able to make it happen? And then collaborate on how you'll, number one, if it's possible, and what would have to change in order for it to be possible. Absolutely, I can do this additional work. However, I won't be able to do this. Which one is a priority here?
Absolutely. And that's, like, you read my mind, because that's exactly where I was going. I mean,
okay, good.
I call it making good agreements. So when you're assigned something, okay, that's an assignment. That's a one-way communication. If I say, Shawn, you're assigned this report, and then I hightail it, Shawn hasn't actually agreed to the report. And I'm not Shawn's boss, we're partners, but if I were, and I assign it to her and I hightail it out, there's not an agreement, there's not a discussion. So if you are the subordinate, if you're the team member and you're assigned something by your supervisor, your manager, or whatever, it's okay to ask questions about it. It's okay to delve in. How high is this on your priority list? Is this higher than this other task that I already have? What is your desired due date for this? And then feel free to take time to say, okay, let me look at my schedule and everything else that I have so that I can get back to you with a reasonable due date. And then what I always love to do, and this is just kind of my time management, loving hearts time hack, is I will promise a deadline 2 to 3 business days after I believe I can have it done. Because that way I know I can get it to them on time, on what they think is on time. So let's say somebody asks me for something on Friday and I say, okay, I can get that. I know I can do it by Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll say, okay, I'll have it back to you by next Friday. And then when I'm done with it on Wednesday, I'm going to hold on to it and hand it to them on Thursday. I'm happy because I've made sure that it's the highest quality work because I kept in an extra day and looked over it again. They're happy because I got it to them a day before what they thought deadline was. But in my brain, I kept the Wednesday deadline because I knew that I could get it done by then. So
Mhm.
that's a really great way to take that pressure off too. So
And I love you're talking about managing yourself. And I'll tell you this, as a leader in corporate America, I would stretch my people and make, I need you to do these things. And I used to say, and I was sincere with this. I used to say, look, I will ask a lot of you. And I'll continue to ask, but what I want from you, what I need from you is I need you to make sure you are giving me your boundaries. If it's not possible, then I want you to be honest with me on this. So then we can think about, okay, well, what do we need to do? Do we need more resources or what have you? So I'm not going to be disappointed by you saying this is impossible. I'm going to take it as, okay, well, this isn't the solution, then let's figure out what it really is.
yeah. And is it really impossible, or does it just need to be tweaked to be possible?
Yeah. Do we need to deprioritize something else so that we can move forward on that?
I've actually gotten complimented by a board president of a company that I worked with, because she was definitely just a workhorse. She would just pile it on, and there was never an end to the work, and it was fine. But every single time I was assigned more or given new expectations or whatever, I would say to her, all right, right now we're working on A, B, C, D, E. You've just given me X, Y, Z. Let's look at these, and I want your top 5 priorities. And then she'd be like, okay, and we'd shuffle them around. And before B was like super high on her priority list, well, now it fell off. It's number 6.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in her top 5. And she actually complimented me in front of the board one time as an example of, how to make sure that you stay on good terms with your boss, or someone who's in the position of handing work to you, while minding your own personal boundaries. If your work is seeping over into your personal life and you find yourself miserable there, I would say it's more about you and what's going into your brain and going on in your brain than it is about anything else.
Yeah. And here's the thing, and I'm just going to take the other side of this. As a leader in the corporate world, I don't want this to seep into I don't want the things that I've asked you to do. I absolutely 100% do not want it to seep into your personal life, because then you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be balanced. And you know what I'm at risk of? I'm at risk of losing a great employee.
Yeah.
I would much rather have that discussion with you to talk about, hey, what's doable? What do we need to tweak? What are our priorities, or the priorities of the organization? I mean, we're all used to, trying to do stuff with too little resources, but, at the end of the day, capacity is capacity.
Yeah. And that's, maybe we can do that. I'm writing it down. How to have a conversation with your boss when you feel like you're overworked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really great. And we'll do that one for another time. So keep your eye out for it. And so that when it drops, make sure, check and see if you're a subscriber here. And if you're not, click that subscribe button and the bell. And when we do drop that video, it'll end up in your feed. You can come back and get some more expert advice from Executive Coach Shawn and Dr. Jane. And we will see you next time.
Bye.